Welcome back to WD Magiccast for the week of December 22nd, 2024. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and Happy Boxing Day, everyone. This is episode 278, WD Magiccast, the show about the mouse, the Marvels, the galaxy, and beyond. I'm your host, Matthew Graykin. In this week's episode, Matthew Leonard and I sit down and discuss the classic, the 1987 Muppets Family Christmas, a show that was so good they could only show it once. Don't forget to check out the social medias. Let us know what you think of Muppet Family Christmas. We're found pretty much everywhere at WD Magiccast, Twitter, Facebook, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, Threads, YouTube. Make sure to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel where I've been posting some exclusive videos on there. Whole bunch of new stuff coming up on there. Check it out. You won't be disappointed. And TikTok, as long as it's still legal in the United States. Check out RT Public Store as well, where you get yourself some cool WD Magiccast gear, swag, shirts, hoodies for the winter, stuff for the summer coming up, tank tops, whatever you like. There's a whole bunch of stuff on there. Support your favorite podcast while you're at it, and we'll appreciate it. And on that bombshell, on with the show. December 16th, 1987. I was sitting around the TV watching ABC, watching the Muppets merrily sing their way into the Bear residence house, watching Ma Bear trying to get away from everybody going on vacation. To me, this is a very fond memory because I have enjoyed this special since 1987. In whatever form I can get it. And here to discuss how to get there certain things, passing along the proverbial pebble, because it's been passed 592 times in the past year. Matt Leonard has joined us to watch out for an icy patch. Matt, welcome back, and how are you doing?
I'm good. You know, as you were saying doing the introduction, I was actually just thinking to myself, wouldn't it be really funny if I came on the show and you introduced me and said, how you doing? And then I just sat here quietly and stared at you and didn't say anything. And you would have to figure out what to do with that. And I'm not saying that's going to happen tonight, but I think eventually you are going to have me on the show and you're like, hey, Matt, welcome to the program.
Haven't you done that once?
Not intentionally. I think sometimes.
Well, yeah, I don't think it was intentional.
Sometimes I forget that I'm on the podcast.
Sometimes I do too. So.
Yeah.
But great to have you back. I know you've been busy, so thank you so much for making time.
Yeah.
And we're discussing a topic that is quite repulsive to you.
Oh, yeah. I hate talking about the Muppets. It's terrible.
I meant the Fraggles, but okay.
No, I love talking about the Fraggles, but I just don't want to talk about the frog and the bear and the pig and those guys. That's
and the strange, disgusting blue thing that catches cannonballs.
Yeah, no, those guys make me very uncomfortable.
Understandable.
Yeah. No, you know me. I love to. I'll use any excuse I can to talk Muppets.
I try to find any excuse to be able to talk Muppets.
Yeah.
I still stand by that. There's not enough Muppet talk going on in the world.
No, there isn't. So let's fix that. We're gonna fix that one podcast at a time.
Works for me.
Yeah.
So. Muppet Family Christmas.
Yes.
I've always found out, I understand the legal reasons, but I've always found it unfortunate that there's not a, shall we say, a kosher way to be able to view this in the United States.
It's and it's always, and what's really annoying, I don't know how much you know about this. You know, it was released after they sold to the Germans, but before they sold to Disney. It was released on DVD. You can find legitimate DVD copies. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem with that.
It's just like my VHS copy of it.
No, it's the quality's actually pretty good.
No. I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. They actually had a deal. They went through Buena Vista Home Video, and they released it on DVD. But the owners of Buena Vista Home Video, who will remain nameless, although that is the tie to the show, decided not to pay for the rights on 3 of the songs, 2 of which are like practically plot. And for a show that doesn't have a particularly strong plot or a heavy plot, 2 of the songs that they cut are actually like plot elements.
Yes.
So like of the 3 songs that they decided not to pay for the rights for. So yeah, you can go on. I found copies on eBay last week. I was looking and I found copies on eBay, but be aware that you're missing. There's also 2 songs. There's a big medley at the end, and there are like 2 songs cut from the medley in the end. So it's like really like they're awkward edits there too. All of the edits out of it are just really, really super awkward. And so it's not the ideal version. It's not the ideal way to watch this show, unfortunately. The ideal way to watch it is to find perhaps a bootleg copy, which I certainly don't have and do not watch at all. So I don't remember anything about the sleigh ride number with Fozzie and the snowman that was cut. And I don't remember the Muppet Babies singing Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
You mean that didn't end whenever, it didn't start and end with the animal walking through the screen?
Yeah. Ends with animal walking through. And I don't remember Piggy arriving at the house singing There's No Place Like Home for the Hollies. I don't remember any of these things. Don't ask me for details about any of them because, as I said, I do not have a bootleg copy of Muppet Family Christmas.
And I did not download it off of YouTube and watch it on a USB drive on my TV where I could see Miss Piggy coming up on the sleigh with the guy from Fraggles all dressed up as a Mountie, where she cannot figure out where he got this elaborate costume, and she's just being pulled along in dog sleds, or one of the few puppet versions of the Muppet Babies tinkering along.
I think that's literally the only like film or television appearance of the baby animal puppet.
Yep, probably.
Like I'm hard pressed to think of that puppet. I mean, I know he appeared in like they used him in like storybooks and stuff, and like Muppet Magazine, but I don't remember ever seeing that puppet appear as a puppet in anything else. Yeah. That's interesting. The baby animal puppet. That's the only time that baby animal puppet appears. Interesting.
Or constantly making reference to a snowman making it, talking about his Winnebago, so cold that his Winnebago will freeze.
Which is a joke that I never understood. I feel weirdly like we've sort of jumped to the end of the discussion and right over like everything else. But to get back to your point, it's not. You don't get to. It's a tough special to watch, and I don't think it's ever going to get a proper DVD release because obviously the house is splintered, and the Sesame Street characters are owned by one corporate entity, and the Fraggle characters are owned by another corporate entity, and the Muppet characters are owned by a third corporate entity, and it takes a lot of. It's at this point it's the same reason we'll never see a sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Despite how many times we're promised it. Nope. It's
you're more likely to see the Roger Rabbit thing, folks.
That current state, yes. One of those corporations is looking for uses of characters. It is it's unfortunate because it's so wholesome, like homey and wholesome. Just like it's just so fun to watch. Huh?
Go ahead. It's heartwarming.
It's just heartwarming. There's no big drama to it. There's no, heaviness to it. It's just everyone getting together to enjoy the holidays, at the home of one of their friends, and just kind of like this, just in talking about kind of what the holidays mean to everybody and how it's really just kind of, being together.
And it was born out of Jim's busy schedule, because at that point the Muppet Show had been off the air 5 or 6 years. He was in Toronto doing Fraggles. He was in New York doing Sesame. He was in London doing Labyrinth. I'm sure he was in LA doing things in Los Angeles. And he, as I understand it, loved Christmas. It was sort of his favorite time of year. And he did do, if you look at the body of work, that you have Christmas Eve on Sesame Street, that you have the Christmas Toy, the Great Santa Claus Switch, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, and the Muppet Family. There's a Christmas episode of Fraggle Rock,
Yep.
Or holiday episode of Fraggle Rock, I should say.
The Bells of Fraggle Rock.
The Fraggle Rock. And so this was just his way to get everybody, to get most of his team together in the same place, and just sort of, just the feeling you get on screen is the feeling that he wanted off screen. He wanted that connection between his performers and his staff and the people around him. He just wanted to sort of get everybody together and have a big Christmas party. And so that's how the show kind of came about. It was his desire to do that, and it was done on a break from Fraggle Rock. So they shot in Toronto. They used largely the same production team. If you look at the credits to Muppet Family Christmas and the credits to Fraggle Rock, it's a lot of the same. It's the same camera guys, it's the same camera operators, it's the same producers, it's the same sound people. It's pretty much just right down the line and right across the board. Most of the Fraggle puppeteers were already up there anyway, so he just brought in Frank and brought in the Sesame puppeteers, and that was the show.
Yeah, and it's, like I said, it's simply but brilliant. Like you said, it's that nostalgic feel for the holidays that I think most people long for or just picture.
Yeah.
And just how it starts off with the Muppet Gang in a beat up pickup truck. Forget the title of the song. I could hear the song in my head. I just forget the title of it.
We Need a Little Christmas.
Need a Little Christmas, singing that along, and just driving through this winter with the windows open, strangely enough. And yeah, just talking about setting up the whole thing. Oh, isn't your mom going to be, shocked that we're all just showing up? Are you sure she's going to be like, oh yeah, she loves this type of stuff? And then you pan to, switch over, have the cut to the inside of the farmhouse and his mom getting ready to go to California for Christmas. And what I always find interesting is like you're panning through the house and everything is still, except the rocking chair is still moving.
Right. It's a nice touch, actually.
Yeah. But it's just a classic farmhouse look.
Yeah.
And then that song finishes, and then you have Doc.
Doc arrives, and that's pretty much, that's kind of how, I think they did a great job of not ruining Fraggles. You didn't want to have the Fraggles too far out in the real world. Kermit and Robin interact with them, and they kind of leave it at that, and that's fine. You do get the Fraggle characters in there, but then really having Doc and Sprocket is the real tie to Fraggle Rock.
Yeah, you keeping the human element in the quote unquote real world, which plays off nicely.
Yeah,
because make the references and everything. But like
he was also, Jerry Parks, who played Doc, was another one of those great sort of in the long line of guys like Roscoe Orman and Bob McGrath on Sesame Street. And I think John Denver too, like who could just sort of play straight to the Muppets. You know, it was one thing when they worked with comedians, but when Jim and his team had a good straight man, they milked it. They milked it. They knew how to milk, because a good straight man is worth their weight in gold. And they had several over the years. You know, John Denver was another one he worked with, because John Denver was he wouldn't play comedy. He would just sort of play himself, and he was okay with letting the Muppets be insane around him. And Jerry Parks was, you know, Bob McGrath is another one. Roscoe Orman, who played Gordon on Sesame Street. Bob McGrath, of course, was Bob on Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And, you know, all these guys who were just really good at not trying to top the Muppets, not trying to be comedic around the Muppets, just let the Muppets be insane. And you almost sort of want to be a Margaret Dumont, you know, and just sort of sit there and react to the lunacy of what they're doing. And Jerry Parks was brilliant at just sort of absorbing it, you know, and he did it very well with Sprocket, although most of the time the gag with Sprocket was often that Sprocket would be doing something or would want something or would need something, and Doc was always too distracted by, you know, trying to sew a button onto a scrambled egg or something, or what it was described, trying to sew a button onto a fried egg, so that he wouldn't notice whatever Sprocket was doing, or he wouldn't notice the Fraggles coming in and out of the workshop or whatever. But to watch him here be a straight man to the Muppets and react to it, that scene with there's a scene where he meets Ernie and Bert, and
I was just thinking of that scene.
Hi, I'm Doc. Do you know Doc starts with the letter D? Yes, and yes with the letter Y.
Right.
And
what's going on here? Where we come from, this is small talk.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's just great. I mean, that scene is so funny because he just like, okay, whatever, and goes with it. And he does that a couple different places throughout, where he just, you know, we weren't watching it a few weeks ago because we don't have a bootleg copy of the DVD. But if we had been watching it a few weeks ago, there's a line where he goes out to get Miss Piggy, and he says, you know, well, you know, up until a few hours ago, I didn't know any of you, but now we're all friends. And he goes, he's going to go out and he's going to look for Miss Piggy in the snow. And he says, what does she look like? And Kermit says, well, for one thing, she's a pig. And he just kind of completely unflappable goes, well, up until a few hours ago, I would have thought that was odd. And then he turns around and he walks out.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, it's like just matter of fact, you know. And that was the brilliance of Jerry Parks. He was so good at what he did. He was a really, really brilliant actor and a brilliant straight man for the Muppets.
So another part of my favorite parts. Oh, he goes at the first scene whenever the Muppets are coming in. Sprocket, is this anything like those Fraggles that you keep telling me about? And Sprocket's like, and they twist his paw. Right. Or whenever Wolf shows up and Sprocket and Wolf are talking or barking to each other. It's like, don't you hate it when you can't speak the language?
They did it a couple times. I love any time Rolf barks, because Jim, I think very brilliantly and very wisely, chose to not actually ever have Rolf bark. He just, it's always bark, bark, woof, woof, woof. And, you know, and as opposed to actually trying to imitate a dog sound or give him a dog sound, it's just so much funnier and so much more believable that Rolf would just go, bark, bark, woof, woof. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it's like, you know.
Sometimes he would do that, and he would make the sentence just like, yeah, whatever. You know, like, I have no idea what you're saying. It's just a dog thing.
Two versions of Spanish or something like that.
Yeah.
Where Sprocket is actually woof, 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 woof.
Right, is an actual dog sound.
Yeah. Which is, again, it's brilliant, and it's just, it's so comfortable just to watch this.
And it's fun to just sort of put all of those characters together and let the sort of explore what those relationships are when you put Rizzo and Oscar in a room together, or when you put I don't know. I can't even think. Like, I don't know, like Grover and Robin. Who are the Muppets that are gonna Cookie Monster and Animal? Who are the Muppets that are gonna kind of the Muppet and Sesame Street characters who are just gonna kind of mesh together and become friends.
Yeah, Cookie. That's my kind of fella.
Right.
Yeah, then you had the whole thing with the Swedish Chef and Big Bird.
Right. Yeah, there's a good example. Swedish Chef trying to we were like literally talking about this before the show. Sesame Street Swedish Chef trying to roast Big Bird for Christmas dinner as the Christmas goose.
You have the turkey, which is brilliantly done by
Steve Whitmire as the turkey.
Yeah, Steve Whitmire.
You want a fun little piece of trivia the next time you watch it, if you ever do, but don't.
I might not if I did have a copy of it. Yes.
If you stumble upon a bootleg copy or a copy on YouTube, which we don't condone and obviously would never do ourselves, but
no, never.
If you somehow accidentally stumble upon a copy of the show and you're watching it, there's a scene where Gonzo and the turkey are fighting with each other. They're arguing because the turkey is the turkey's hitting on Camilla, and Gonzo doesn't like that, and so Gonzo is threatening the turkey. And
I'm gonna rip off your waddle. Yeah, you and what other nerds?
It's Steve Whitmire and Dave Goelz are the turkey and Gonzo, respectively. And if you look on the staircase behind them, watching the fight break out, are Rizzo and Zoot, who are a Steve Whitmire character and a Dave Goelz character. And I always love that they kind of do that. That it's you can break it up a little bit.
I've always just been focused on the foreground. I've never paid attention to the background on that one.
If you watch and you really think about it, it's a Steve character and a Dave character watching a Steve character fight a Dave character. Yeah.
Now, see, what I always thought was interesting is that same turkey shows up in Letters to Santa.
Yeah, that turkey puppet gets around. He's in I think he's in Christmas Carol somewhere too. That turkey puppet.
It might be. I just know in Letters to Santa, it's not Steve doing him. He just gobbles like a turkey.
Right.
He doesn't, have the Rizzo attitude.
Yeah. Steve's New Yorker accent.
Yeah. What's going on?
Which I think is why you don't see a lot of Rizzo. He's in Muppet Family Christmas. I think he's only got like one line, but I think if you put the camera on that character too much, it becomes really evident that it's the same.
Yeah, you're using him in the other one, so you.
But the turkey and Rizzo are essentially the same character.
It's basically the same character.
Yeah, the turkey I think is a little bit more conniving than.
Yes, well, considering that he's trying to off Big Bird.
Yeah, but it's more or less the same character, really. But I love my favorite thing in that special, or one of my favorite things in that special, is there's I hate the song most of the time, and I think one of the reasons I hate the song is because the Electric Mayhem ruined it for me by doing it so absolutely awesomely. Is Jingle Bell Rock.
Oh yes,
which I generally as a song absolutely detest and can't stand, but man, the Mayhem gets it and plays it as only they can with their horn section, and I can't listen to it any other way, really.
See, I thought it was just me having that problem, because anytime I've heard it afterwards, I'm like, I always just picture the Electric Mayhem doing it.
Always.
And it's just that's like the ultimate version of it. Everything else, it doesn't even fall short,
and
close to short.
Weirdly, it was released on it was like kids Christmas Volume 2 or something, like some weird collection of like kids Christmas music, and it's like the lead track is Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem singing Jingle Bell Rock. So you can legally, or you could at least for a while legally find this song and download it or buy a copy of it, and I love that because it's. I always love the Electric Mayhem, and whenever they do stuff with them, and like I said, it's the only version of that song that I can stomach. But I remember distinctly watching the special when it aired on television, when it first aired. And it starts out with Kermit and Robin singing a very sweet little duet version of Jingle Bells, and then
Yes.
launches into this hard version of Jingle Bell Rock, and it's the band. And I get a thrill anytime I see the band, and particularly at that time whenever Lips showed up and was part of the band. And it was just like, and I just remember getting like really excited. Like the rest of the show could have literally stopped there and I would have been happy. But it's a great song and a great moment in the show.
Yeah, the little innocent start off, and then you switch to the rock version of it. The Sesame Street take on the Christmas pageant, Night Before Christmas.
Christmas, yeah.
How come I have to be Mama? Well, we draw the straws, and you got the short straw. You're good.
Classic Jim and Frank.
Who said the two-headed monster could be Santa Claus? It's got this so many like cute little moments.
Right.
Mom Bear saying about Emily Bear.
Emily Bear.
Saying, is there any more? No, this is it. Oh, good, because we're running out of room, and two of you gonna have to sleep in hangers in the closet. And there's Gonzo and Animal. What a great idea! Love hanger.
What?
I'm just trying to think of what else, because I just enjoy it. The medley at the end is beautiful.
Yeah, God.
Where they just all sing around. They're just, you have all the performers coming together and just singing medley of classic songs, and then they end with the song from Christmas Toy. But it's just like done so nicely. I can put that part on and just listen to that for close to an hour.
Yeah. And there's another song that pops up in there that Jim loved and adored and used whenever he could. And I don't even know. I know the first time it showed up was in John Denver and the Muppets: A Christmas Together. I maybe want to say John Denver might have written it. I should really look into it. But there's a song. It's in every one of us. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us by and by. It's such a, and that's it's just that two or three times over, repeated two or three times over. It's such a beautiful sentiment, and I think Jim really believed that, and really in his, I don't think Jim really believed that. Look at the body of the man's work. Jim believed that, and Jim taught that with his characters. Yes. And I think if you got anything out of the Muppets, that's what he wanted you to get out of Sesame Street, out of Fraggle Rock, even the Muppet Show, even the Dark Crystal. I think that's what he wanted people to get out of his work. And I think that song sums up his body of work and his artistic vision better than anything else. So it's fantastic that shows up, that song shows up as often as I could. I know it's one of the songs when they sang at his when the Muppet performers sang at his funeral, and they did a similar thing. They did a medley of all of Jim's favorite songs, and that one was in there.
Look at, let's see here.
I'm trying to find it.
Yeah. I'm looking at the album and it's not coming. I know it. Oh, it must be part of the medley. Unfortunately,
it's okay. So it's actually written by someone named David Pomeranz.
Okay.
Which here we go. Always go to the Muppet Wiki. So later interpolated into the 1986 British musical Time. but I don't know where the song. David Pomeranz, but I don't know where the song originated. If it was written for.
Was it written for the Muppets or something they just adopted?
I think it's one of those things that Jim just. Okay, so it's got a. Hang on. Excuse me. It's got a copyright of 1973. So it's before Jim was doing. I mean, before the Muppet Show characters.
So it's an older song.
Yeah.
That they just came upon and just took a liking to.
Yeah. There's a 2020 version of this song.
That could be unfortunate.
I may have to go looking for this now. Yeah, see, now I want to find the original.
So 1973. And the title again was?
It's in Every One of Us by David Pomeranz. But yeah, it looks like it's written and performed by David. You can find it on YouTube. Written and performed by David Pomeranz, and then somewhere along the line, Jim found it and adopted it and made it the Muppets' own.
Yeah,
interesting.
He said they even performed it at his funeral.
Yes.
Got it.
Sorry, I just found an interesting article here about. Hang on, it's coming up.
Live and in person.
So he says, "What would you do if the Muppets sang a song you wrote?" Well, for me, I wasn't too sure about it, but then hearing Kermit the Frog, John Denver, and all the Muppets sing "It's in Every One of Us," it was an unforgettable moment. I'll always cherish the joy and magic they brought to my song. Have you seen the video of them singing it? And he posted that on Instagram some time ago. So,
well, yeah, that was the John Denver.
Apparently, okay with it.
Yeah, the Muppet Holiday with John Denver.
John Denver and the Muppets of Christmas Together was the first they used it. But I know Jim absolutely loved that song, and it got used a couple of times by them.
Jim had a way with music.
He did. And Christmas specials. I missed when I was rattling off Muppet Christmas specials earlier, and I realized that I had missed one.
Well, you had Rocky Mountain Holiday as well.
Oh, you know what? I think A Christmas Together was the one that I realized I had missed.
Yeah, Christmas Together, Rocky Mountain Holiday.
Great Santa Claus Switch, Christmas Eve on Sesame Street.
There's another favorite. Every year I watch that.
There's another Christmas special that predates that. Like, it's like from the first or second season of The Muppet Show. Or, I'm sorry, first or second season of Sesame Street. And I can't remember what the name of it, but it's like, it's really bad. It's like it's tough to sit through. Is
it Star Wars Christmas special bad?
It's not quite to that level, but man, it's approaching. It's early 1970s Christmas special bad. Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah, it's not it's that same concept of, like, you know, B. Arthur as a lounge singer in a cantina in Star Wars. And this thing has, like, a young Michael Jackson, Imogene Coca, Ethel Merman, and I want to say maybe Leslie Uggams. And it's like, it's really, I can't even sit through a few minutes of it. Like, anytime I see just the slightest bit of footage, I just want to put a chair through a wall.
Would it be more tolerable with Mystery Science Theater crew?
Maybe.
That's bad.
I think it would be more tolerable if you turned it on and then turned on the Star Wars holiday special at the same time and just faced the screens at each other and let them duke it out for which one is worse. But
Woo.
there's a Sesame Street special that I can't remember the name of, and it's hard. It's hard to sit through.
They've done a lot for Sesame Street, but to me, the one that always stands out is the Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve was like one of the best things.
That's like pinnacle of.
And a lot of the crew, a lot of the team who worked on that have been like, yeah, that, like, I did an interview with like Carol Spinney where it's like, what's your favorite thing you've ever done? He's like, it's that, like, we peaked like after, like with that, like it never got better than doing that. And I know Carol said that a couple times in different interviews, and I know a few others connected with the show have said that, like, that was the best that show ever had to offer.
And it shows, and like I said, it still holds up. And without a certain Little Red Monster.
Yeah.
It does, it's just so well put together on all levels.
And I know I feel like we're jumping around from Muppet Family Christmas. That's okay, because it's, what are people going to do? I love to watch Christmas Eve on Sesame Street. It is Frank Oz's best work, bar none. Certainly, I don't know about his directing work, but his puppetry work, bar none. He does Grover, he does Cookie Monster, and he does Bert. And in all three characters, he steals the show in a way that he does a thing with. They're trying to figure out. They do a thing with the kids. This is back when they would have little segments where the Muppet characters would interview kids, and again, Frank was known for being like the master of these, because you never knew what the kids were going to do. Sort of kids say the darndest things, but with Muppets. Where the Muppets would just interview the kids and the kids would talk and the Muppets had to just react to it. And Frank you can go back and find literally any of these things. Frank is the undisputed master. There's a really good one with Kermit and a little girl doing the alphabet. There's another one with Harry and a little boy counting to 20. And this is, 1971, 1972. But then, like, just anytime Frank with a kid and a puppet would just own it. And so he does Grover, and Grover is doing these things where Grover is asking kids how Santa Claus gets down the chimney. And they're going off with all these crazy theories and crazy ideas, and some of them you can't even understand. And Frank just rolls with it. And each and every one of Grover's interactions with one of these kids is brilliant and hysterical and sweet and charming and fantastic. And then he does Cookie Monster, and he does a series of
the Cookie Monster bits are hysterical. My kids love them.
Which is Cookie trying to write a letter to Santa Claus at the last minute to ask for cookies for Christmas. And just each and every single one of them is like the next one is funnier than the first one is funny, and then the next one is even funnier, and then it's like him with a pad and paper and a pencil, and it's very funny and it's cute. And then he does one where he's
got the typewriter,
and he ends up eating the typewriter, and it's hilarious. And then he ends up he's going to call Santa, and he gets Santa on the phone. He ends up while the phone is ringing, he eats the telephone, and it's like all of them are so funny. And then, when you think Frank can't get any better, he does Bert. And it's a Gift of the Magi storyline about Bert. Ernie sells his rubber ducky to buy a cigar box for Bert to keep his paper clips in. Bert sells his paperclip collection to buy a soap dish for Ernie's rubber ducky. And there's a scene where Bert goes into
Mr. Hooper's store
to sell the paper clips, and it's the most heart-wrenching scene ever. I won't say ever, because I know there's one that tops it, and Fraggle Rock, but it's one of the most heart-wrenching scenes from any of the Muppets. I mean, it will tear your heart out and stomp it on the floor. It's a little 2-minute scene, 3-minute scene. Frank absolutely sells this character and the plight of having to give up something he loves so that he can do something nice for his best friend for Christmas. I mean, God, yeah, Christmas Eve on Sesame Street is Frank Oz. It's one of the best things that Sesame Street ever did. And within that, oh my God, it is some of Frank Oz. It is Frank Oz's best work as far as I'm concerned as a puppeteer. It's his best work as a puppeteer. But and then of course they did Muppet Family Christmas, and everybody's brilliant in that.
Yeah, that's
trying to turn the show back to what
it doesn't, like you said, not as much of a plot.
U-turn, by the way.
Huh?
That was a really hard U-turn. I felt that one as the car was coming around on the icy patch.
Right before going off the side of the cliff with the car. I was going to say Laverne and Shirley.
The car fishtailed a little bit coming out of that one, but there we're back on the subject of Muppet Family Christmas.
Which doesn't have as much fun, but so much heart written into it, and just so much fun, and just you can just sit back and just enjoy this. Just like it's almost like a Norman Rockwell painting for Christmas.
Yeah,
it just like it in all of its little setups. I was even going to say before about Big Bird and the chef, and Big Bird's just like knocking things over in the kitchen. So chef, what are we having? And chef just can't have this, the heart to say they were going to have he's breaking down in tears.
Yeah,
because he just Big Bird is.
Big Bird gives him a Christmas present.
Yes, Big Bird gives him a little Christmas present, and then just destroys the chef. And the chef comes over. He's going cranberry sauce
wheat and cranberry.
Huh?
Shredded wheat and
cranberry sauce. And Big Bird just being Big Bird, my absolute favorite.
And it's always fun to watch the chef because it's Jim doing the head and Frank doing the hands, and they never knew. Jim didn't know what Frank was going to do. Frank would just do things with the hands, and Jim would just have to go with it. And so really watch Chef's hands. Go back and watch classic Muppet Show and watch Chef's hands, and realize exactly how in sync those two were with each other.
Yeah.
I
was gonna say to kind of wrap it up, the end of the show, everyone's singing the medley, and you pan into the kitchen, and there's Jim Henson and Sprocket, talking, is it nice everyone safe and together on Christmas? All right, Sprocket, someone's got to do the dishes.
And he says his line is, and I think this is great. He says they're having a nice time together. I like when they're having a good time together.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's not just that's not acting. I think that's a from the heart admission of Jim's. That was what Jim, as you read recollections from his colleagues and his coworkers, Jim was always at his happiest when he was sitting back and watching the others play with each other. He loved playing with them too, but he really loved to sit back and watch them with each other. And so that line is not just Jim. It's not Jim talking about the Muppets. It's Jim talking about the people beneath the Muppets and under and around those characters. He likes watching them have a good time.
His friends, for lack of actually what they were. Which I was thinking about this, and correct me if I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Okay.
All
the specials.
That's the end of the show, folks. He's wrong, and that's all you need to know. No,
what's the specials before that? It was always Kermit introducing or ending the specials. Emmett Otter was Kermit. Christmas Toy was Kermit.
Yeah. And Emmett Otter and Christmas Toy, but I think because those are actual sort of more story oriented. I think it sort of goes. I mean, like you can go back to like Hey Cinderella, and that was or Frog Prince, or what's the other one? Muppet Musicians of Bremen. I think it kind of calls back to those when you have Kermit introducing the story and playing host to the story. But they did a gag at the end they did a TV special in just maybe a year or two, a couple of years before that, maybe about 2 years before that. They did a special. It was the Muppets 30th anniversary, celebrating the Muppets 30th anniversary in television. And it's basically a giant banquet with all of the Muppet characters, all of the Muppet and Sesame Street characters. Almost kind of, it's a retrospective, sort of a This Is Your Life kind of thing with Kermit the Frog.
Right.
And it's the same thing where it's just all of the Muppet characters, all of the Sesame Street characters, and they get the Sesame Street characters get up and talk about Sesame Street and the joys of Sesame Street, and Floyd gets up and talks about music, and there's a montage about Muppet music and whatever else. And at the end of the special, there's a bit with Jim, and he's sitting. Grover is throughout the special running around being the waiter and bringing food and slipping on things and whatever else and being silly. And so the last thing in the special is Jim is sitting there, and Grover runs up with a platter, and he goes, "Oh, Mr. Henson, I brought the bill for you," and it's sort of like a clown thing where you see the little piece of paper on the tray, and Jim grabs it and picks it up, and Grover runs off, and it's just this huge bill because he's paying for all of them
everybody
at this banquet. And it's a cute little bit. And I think it was just sort of at that point, it was them kind of like, well, that was a really funny thing. Let's do that again. Let's just toss Jim in there and acknowledge the boss.
Okay. See, it's here in my mind, it was Kermit's in the storyline. So we'll have Jim, who's Kermit's other persona, more or less.
Yeah.
Close it out.
Yeah. I think it was just a bit to give them.
That works for me.
Yeah, sure.
Since we're going to go off topic anyway, but keeping with the same idea.
Oh, okay.
Just wanted to get because I actually have not talked to you about this. Your take of the Electric Mayhem taking over Rocking Roller Coaster.
Oh, yeah. This was a trap. I should have seen this one coming when you called and let's talk about Christmas. Oh, I should have seen this coming. Man, do we want to talk about that, or do we want to talk about the elephant in the room first?
I've had a lot to say about the elephant in the room.
Yeah, see, I'm not a roller coasters guy.
You're not a theme park guy.
Well, yeah, I'm not a theme park guy either, and part of that, a big part of that is because I'm not a roller coasters guy. So I sort of, as much as I love the Muppets, don't have a horse in this race. I can tell you when my daughter went to Disney World a couple of years ago, the one ride that she said she absolutely hated and would never go on again was the Rock and Roller Coaster. She was like, I will never do another indoor. It's like she was nauseous. She was sick coming off of that. She did not want. So I know I can speak for her when I say she doesn't like indoor roller coasters because of that. So she, like, if and this is a gigantic if my family went to Disney World, it would be a Muppet thing that none of us would go to. I don't think my wife would. I don't think my son would. I know she and I definitely wouldn't. So I feel like it's, and you're not going to take a 5-year-old is not going to ride a roller coaster.
No,
it must be this tall to ride this ride. So,
well, particularly that roller coaster, they can't.
Right. And so I just feel like you're taking one of the most accessible properties that Disney owns. You can enjoy it if you're 2. You can enjoy it if you're 90. And you're limiting who can enjoy that property. I like what they're trying to do, but I don't think this is the right use for the Muppets. Having said that, Man, Muppet Vision is so good. It's so funny. It's so clever. It's so sharp. It's so innovative. It's the last thing. It is the last thing that Jim Henson produced and finished before he passed away. So to lose that in the parks, and I've heard rumors and rumblings and murmurs that they may find another home for it.
Well, if you read the press release, is specifically worded, and I know it's not by accident, that they are preserving the attraction for future enjoyment.
Right.
Never saying exactly what that is. And I did something with Dave and Chris a couple episodes ago when we were talking about this when the release happened. That there is a black box building which was housing the Lightning McQueen stage show. It was just an animatronic with some seating around it, and some screens. And then now they've taken that out. They're putting in a villains thing, which the villains is no secret, a test run for the villains land that they're building. So that's got a limited lifespan on it. What are the chances that they preserve that, the attraction that is Muppet Vision and shift it over to this black box, whatever the villains show is run its course, and put the Muppets there, which is by chance right next to Rock and Roller Coaster.
Yeah, possibly.
And now you have a Muppet section of the park.
You know where I think, and I think I've said this to you before, you know where I always feel like the Muppets would thrive if they moved them to? I think they need to get them out of Hollywood Studios and move them into Epcot.
A lot of people have been saying that and stick it behind the American Pavilion.
Yeah. Well, you don't even just stick behind the American Pavilion. You have like literally that you've got the World Showcase, and then it's always like, what's the other like? It's Epcot, it's the World Showcase, and then the other half of Epcot.
Well, that's the best way to refer to it now, because it used to be Future World, and now it's broken into like 5 little segments that future world of this and world of that and world of this. And to me, it's simplify it, make it future world and not world nature, world motion, world whatever this and left and whatever.
I think whatever you do, you could put the Muppet. I mean, whatever you're doing over there, world of you want the world of the future. You've got Bunsen, Honeydew, and Beaker. I mean, world of the future. Put Muppet Vision in world of the future.
Well, and they have a whole building that's been the Life Pavilion has been sitting dormant now for 15 years at least. You could slip them into that
easily.
It's between Test Track, Mission Space, and then you have Guardians of the Galaxy now. You could put them in there. I mean, you have Bunsen and Beaker in the Odyssey restaurant during the food and wine seasons, where the past 2 years of that, you've had Muppet stuff, Muppet inspired food, like they had the pickle milkshake that supposedly Bunsen and Beaker created in their lab, which is supposed to go with everything and whatnot. And then you have little vignettes of them doing stuff in that. So they have been incorporating them into it. They also have the Regal Eagle in the American Pavilion, which is Sam Eagle's barbecue joint.
Right.
So they have been working them into Epcot.
See,
and years ago, you also had the Muppet Mobile Lab.
Right.
Where they're doing the living character initiative.
I think you're gonna see the Muppets move into Epcot. That's my own,
I wouldn't be against that.
Because
I wouldn't be against having them in all the parks.
Because I think at this point, Hollywood Studios isn't really Hollywood Studios anymore. Not as it was originally conceived.
Far from it.
It's it really is at this point more Star Wars land, I think, with other things around it.
We have Star Wars, you have the monsters going in there.
Right.
You have Toy Story on the other end. And then a smattering of a few other things here and there.
Right. Hollywood Studios has kind of like lost its identity, and I just don't think. I think if you try to move the Muppets in and shove them in between Monsters Inc. and Star Wars, they're going to get lost in the shuffle. But if you send them over to Epcot and let them have their own little corner of Disney to play with and be on their own, I think they'll do much better. And
that'll be interesting. You got the Muppets, and then right next door is Guardian of the Galaxy.
Right.
So that would be fun. I mean, I'm not opposed to it.
Or I wouldn't. Or I also like the idea of maybe don't do your rock and roller coaster. They always talked about the idea of doing the idea that was originally supposed to is they were going to do a Muppet version of the
Great Movie Ride.
There's the Great Muppet Movie Ride, and I would a dark ride with the Muppets would be something along the lines of the Runaway Train or Mr. Toad or something along those lines with the Muppets would be really, really funny if you could do it right.
Well, see, and here's a brilliant idea that just came to my mind, and not brilliant because I thought of it, but just with what you were saying about the Runaway Rail, the Mickey and Minnie Runaway Railway ride, which uses image mapping.
Right.
So you have some static pieces, and then you have just a lot of blank forms that you have stuff projected on that constantly could change and move. You take that kind of concept, clone it to basically the Muppets, and you could do any sort of mayhem and craziness.
This is one of those moments that I look at and I go, man, if Jim Henson were still alive, he would be all like that. He would be all over that with playing that with that kind of technology with the Muppets. Or the way they've gotten, like the animatronics in Disney has gotten so good.
Yeah.
Where you're looking at these characters like Lumiere and Jack Sparrow and Hondo Ohnaka.
The Hondo is a brilliant one. The shaman from Avatar is another really great AA figure.
That you can now do the idea that you can do. I mean, the Muppets loan themselves. The Muppets are such a footnote in animatronics, and being able to do, so much of our animatronic technology was developed by the Muppets, or was advanced by the Muppets and by Jim in his film work. That you can now take those characters. Yeah, I mean, if you could do Statler and Waldorf in Muppet Vision, if you rebuilt those animatronics, you could have now with the technology they have now, you can make them really, really look like you're watching the puppet characters. I think, and really try to simulate the movement of having a puppeteer in there, or like you said, having the image mapping and the data mapping, doing that with a character like Waldo Graphic from Muppet Vision, and having Waldo go through. Of course, Waldo was actually played by Steve Whitmire, who doesn't work for Disney anymore. So you'd have to get another puppeteer. But like not the family groups. Sorry, I've forgotten what I was saying. But God,
there's so much possibility.
There's so much possibility with the technology. Just really use the Muppets to push your technology forward. It's what the Muppets are really. It's what I shouldn't say what the Muppets are really good. It's what Jim was really good at. It's what
you take a concept of Muppet Vision, and it's not just the film. It's the film and everything else that's going around it. Like you hear, like that. There's at the end of the part of the parade, they're shooting off arrows. And you hear them pinging off things. And if you look where that sound came from, there's all of a sudden an arrow that wasn't there 3 seconds ago.
Right.
Coming out of the wall.
Right.
And just all sorts of stuff.
It's fully immersive. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Or
just
the penguins. You can do the penguins now, and they would look much less animatronic. You can do the chef now, and he would look much less like an animatronic. Bean would look much better. You could do him now, and yeah, I'd like to see them rebuild Muppet Vision and use the technology they have now to do it even better.
yeah, and just also
do a dark. I don't think a roller coaster is the right choice for them. A dark ride, doing something like the Runaway Roller Coaster or a Mr. Toad kind of thing.
So here is my thing with that.
Okay.
I think a roller coaster is a good idea with the Electric Mayhem. I think that works. Because
Okay.
it's basically what they do with the Guardians. If they do it in the same model they did Guardians of the Galaxy, you have multiple tracks that you can go on, musical tracks that go along with the ride, and you have the Electric Mayhem, so it gives it rewritability because it's not always the same song.
Right.
I don't think it should be the solo attraction for the Muppets.
Yeah.
Like if you had that for your older kids, your teenagers, your thrill seekers, so you have a whole segment of audience there to diversify, but you also need one that you can have your younger audience and your people who don't do thrill rides, which because there's a fair amount of people who don't do thrill rides.
Right.
But one of them is just asleep upstairs, or hopefully asleep upstairs in my house. That don't want to do those things, and but enjoy the Muppets, enjoy doing the 3D shows or just the stuff like that. Like when we saw the Muppets before COVID, and they had the Muppet history lessons.
Muppet history lessons
Going on in Liberty Square, which again was brilliant, and the feedback of the people, what they thought of that show was a very high rated entertainment experience. So the audience is there. You just have to plan it out better. It also goes to show you Disney knows that, because there is a reason why they held off announcing that the Monsters Land was going to replace Muppets for as long as they did, because they knew there was going to be pushback. There was even internal pushback, from my understanding. So, but it is what it is, and there you have it.
A letter opener.
Yes. Anything else you want to add, sir?
I got nothing.
Well, in that case, thank you for coming back on.
Thank you for having me back on.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Boxing Day, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. Diwali passed already. Try to think anything else. No, I think that's it. I think. Huh?
I got nothing.
All right. Have a Smuggle Talk too.
Yes, happy Snuggle Talk, my friend.
Thank you.
To those who
and we'll be talking soon.
All right.
And what do you think of Muppet Family Christmas? Join the conversation on our social networks. As I mentioned at the top of the show, is pretty much everywhere at WD Magiccast. I want to thank you for your time. I know how little time we all have these days, and the fact that we got to spend some time together means a lot to me, to us over here at the WD Magiccast family. Please go online, leave the show a rating or review. We have all 5-star reviews. Keep them coming. We could always use more. Leave it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. The more reviews we get, the more they will do to promote the show. And speaking of promoting the show, share out a link to this episode or your favorite episode. Let people know that you're listening, and let them know about WD Magiccast. The more people we have joining the family, the better it is. Walt believed in a big Disney family, and so do I. Don't forget to subscribe to the show while you're at it. This way you always know when new episodes are posted. And while you're at it, consider becoming a premium subscriber. Really help the show out. You can do this. Look for this information in our show notes, as well as the links to all of our social networks, including our merchandise shop, where, again, you can get yourself some cool WD Magiccast stuff. Remember, this show is brought to you by listeners like you. Whatever you're facing out there, whatever troubles, especially during the holidays, sometimes things seem a little more bleaker, and it's not always joyous for everybody. Don't give up. Never give up. Never give in. Somewhere out there, you are the most important person to someone in the world. You mean more to them than you probably ever realize. And if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. Sometimes the best help comes from strangers. Take that first step and ask. Never give up, never give in. Be your own hero and let your light shine for the entire world to see and see how beautiful and wonderful you are. Now I'd like to end this week's show with a quote from Walt Disney himself. I function better when things are going badly than when they're as smooth as whipped cream. That's again Walt Disney. Thank you again for listening, everyone, and I'll see you next time.